would be this dog over there playing with her toy. So you're just going to have to listen to that. All right, this meeting's being recorded, and you guys are listening to the bird until the dog calms down. Yeah, I'm presenting on logic puzzles today. I have a very close relationship with logic puzzles in that there were certain classes I took at the University of Michigan where I did not want to pay attention during lecture, but I did kind of want to be there during lecture so I didn't miss any important dispensations of information. And it just so happened that every week our Engineering Honor Society gave out free bagels every Wednesday morning and also gave out free logic puzzles every Wednesday morning. So I did a free logic puzzle every Wednesday morning. And then I started doing free logic puzzles every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning.
Just 1 second. I accidentally switched the view to your face. I don't know how to get it back to the presentation.
You may have to quit out of Zoom.
No,
and
just hit unpin video.
Yeah. Oh, I got it.
A button for
Excellent.
Or switch to sharing content.
Yeah, I got it. I'm on mobile, okay. Leo.
Oh.
I don't have internet.
Someday, maybe this week you'll get it. Fingers crossed. All right, so logic puzzles, I'm just gonna start with a bunch of different genres of puzzle because to really understand logic puzzles, you gotta understand what we're dealing with here and all the different puzzles that we have. So for starters, we got good old-fashioned jigsaw puzzles. Jigsaw puzzles, I'm a big fan of those as well. Commercialized in 1760 by John Spilsbury, a London cartographer and engraver. Typically, images include scenes from nature, buildings, repetitive designs. I guess for whatever reason, the ones I picked didn't happen to have any of those, but I guess they were just various topics of interest to me. New trend in this space is three-dimensional puzzles. Feel free to chime in with questions and comments as I go, because this really is a pretty low detail presentation.
What's the puzzle in the bottom right?
Bottom right, I don't know. It looks like there's some sky and something else. I'll be honest, I Googled jigsaw puzzle and this is what came up for one that was under construction. So, I couldn't tell you. There's definitely some sky and some text though.
Yeah, so. LAR.
Yeah, I don't know. All right, so another type of puzzle is a lateral thinking puzzle. They're sometimes called situation puzzles. They're played in a group with one person hosting the puzzle and others asking questions which can only be answered yes or no. Lateral thinking is a manner of solving problems using an indirect and creative approach via reasoning that's not immediately obvious. Nathan, you may recognize these puzzles from our middle school gifted and talented program when Mr. Gary Vosberg would read questions like this, and as a class, we would attempt to solve them. I have some particularly prototypical examples. A man pushed his car. He stopped when he reached a hotel, at which point he knew he was bankrupt. Why? Do we have anyone who knows the answer to that one?
Did he know he was bankrupt before he started pushing the car?
I can't answer that question. All right, we're doing the lateral thinking puzzle. Does anybody know the answer? Holly's judging all of you right now.
I have to say, something that I found was interesting.
A knife made of ice.
That
melted after he was stabbed.
When he jumped out of the building, he was jumping out of a 10-story building, but he was jumping out of it from 1 foot up from the first floor. I think that's what happened.
It's Monopoly.
Robert.
I
do think
it's Monopoly.
It's Monopoly.
I do think. Wait, who pushes their pieces in Monopoly?
Psychopaths.
Wait. I do find it interesting. 3 of us are wearing yellow shirts.
Well, we're all excited about the start of football.
The 4th shirt has yellow in it.
It's also blue, navy blue. So,
It's got a navy blue. Yeah, do we know the other ones? Do we know the other lateral thinking puzzles? I can't believe you guys haven't done lateral thinking puzzles so extensively that you don't have the answer to every single one memorized.
I haven't read them yet.
I've definitely heard the third one. I don't know the answer though.
Nathan, this one we did in
Is
GT.
it like a soda gun? The gun that the bartender takes out, or some
No,
stupid
it's a real ass
garbage
gun.
like that?
It's a real gun.
So the thing that's interesting about lateral thinking puzzles is that they're considered lateral thinking puzzles, but there's all a linear answer, only one right answer, right?
Yeah, and I think lateral thinking puzzle. I think lateral thinking puzzles are great. Like I like them. But yes, there is only one right answer, and like the fun of it is asking the yes or no questions to get to the right answer. I'm going to deprive you of that fun.
So for
This
the
or
apartment
not?
one,
Yes. Any
so
theories?
he lives on the 10th floor of a building, and he takes the elevator to go down to the ground floor to go to work. Does he take the elevator down from the 10th floor?
Yes, he lives on the 10th floor.
But so he doesn't walk to the 7th floor and then take the elevator from the 7th floor down to the ground floor.
That's correct.
However, when he returns, he takes the elevator up to the 7th floor and then walks from the 7th floor to his apartment. Am I
That's
reading
correct.
that correctly?
You are reading that correctly.
Okay, so there's some sort of toll master on the 10th floor who charges people.
I'll give you another hint. When
Yeah.
there's someone else in the elevator with him on the way back up, he just goes straight to the 10th floor.
The button for the 10th floor is broken, and he can't press it. Anyone else can.
Yeah, he's got like
That
a
is-
loft key or something.
Huh? What is that, Pat?
Like a loft key, you know, like the special, like, oh, yeah.
No, it's not that. It's his floor.
Yeah.
Maybe he shouldn't be living on the 10th floor.
So there's a cutie grill who lives on the
Who
7th
lives on the-
floor, and he wants
yeah.
to walk past her apartment every day for like a chance encounter.
That's what I was going to say, that his mistress lives on the 7th floor. And so he goes there, and then he takes the fire escape up to the 10th floor. So when his wife comes home, he's like, I've been here the entire time.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I will give these away now because you guys are so bad at lateral thinking puzzles. This one, the man is too short to reach the 10th floor button.
In what world? In
Perhaps
what
a-
world? That doesn't make any sense.
Little person.
He would have a major, Leo, backing up this, he'd have a major Americans with Disabilities Act lawsuit on his hands. Right?
Yeah, or he could just move.
Or he could get a stick.
Yeah.
In the one we did in GT.
He does not. And wait, I said he couldn't press the button as well.
No, you did.
I
I didn't disagree with that.
So,
in
he
GT,
apparently
the
doesn't
additional
hate it
hint
that
we
much.
got, was that every day that it rained, he just went straight to the 10th floor. And the idea there was he had a stick with him, Nathan, his umbrella.
I would carry
This
a stick
one-
with me every day if I were that guy.
Yes, certainly.
Yeah,
Or
he
just
apparently
like,
doesn't hate walking up the stairs all that much.
or just like ask your super or whatever to install a stick in the elevator for pressing the 10th floor.
Also, I
button.
have a question. How are the buttons arranged where the 7th floor is not on the same row as the 3 across? That would get him to the 6th floor. That'd
1,
be
2, 3,
ground,
4, 5,
second,
6.
3.
They're
Yeah. How's
Lobby. I mean, you just have to have like enough lobby, like atrium,
Yeah.
whatever, so that
Basement.
like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, like whatever. There's a way to do it.
I don't know about that.
Well, if that one pissed you off, Nathan, you'll love this one. The man has the hiccups, and he really appreciates having a gun being pulled on him because it scared the hiccups away.
Couldn't
That
be
seems
me.
like
so-
another. These are all lawsuits waiting to happen.
So 6 to 8 minutes on lateral thinking puzzles here. Maybe next time I'll just do lateral thinking puzzles. The next genre, this is a fun one, mechanical puzzles, and I have a wide variety of these mechanical puzzles. So assembly puzzle and disassembly puzzles are fun ones. This is the Soma Cube. Basically, it's kind of every different way. It's hard to see, but I believe it's every different way you can assemble 4 blocks. I think this one is 4 blocks, but that one might be 3 blocks. I'm not 100% sure. I think they're all 4 blocks. I don't know. I think this one's 3 blocks and all the other ones are 4 blocks. And so the idea is there are certain ways to get this assembled into a cube shape. So that's part of the fun. This is a disassembly puzzle. It's a particularly advanced one invented by a man named Kagan Sound, who has his own Wikipedia page. So he's interesting enough. This won both the grand prize and the People's Choice Award at the Nob Yoshigahara Puzzle Design Competition, which they have a very nice like Web 1.0, just straight HTML website where you can look at every year and all of the winners of puzzles, like basically different mechanically formed puzzles for every year. And it's a impressive hobby, and there really are still master puzzle smiths out there like Kagan. This one you can pick up at like any novelty store or whatever, a disentanglement puzzle to get these two things apart. And then finally, a dexterity puzzle is another common knick-knack you'll see around the house. So these are all very fun. Of course, you can't forget about the sequential movement puzzle. I've included many varieties of sequential movement puzzle. You may recognize this one, Nathan. These puzzles
RuneScape.
require, yes it is. This will not be the last reference to RuneScape today. They require repeated manipulation to get the puzzle into a certain target condition. Rubik's Cube created an unprecedented boom in the genre of mechanical puzzles, resulting in a gazillion different varieties, but this is like a much, much, much older mechanical puzzle, the Tower of Hanoi, or however that is pronounced. This one right here, the little game, just reminds me of a old CD-ROM that my parents had that was just called like 300 games or whatever, that just had a bunch of very simple puzzle games that were all very satisfying in the same way that this one was. So I thought I'd include it, but it's a fun
Couldn't you
example.
play that on a TI-84?
There was a version of that for the TI-84. The difference is that version had gravity. I forget what it was called. I remember when I finally beat it though. I think I was in maybe 8th grade, but maybe 10th grade, I don't know. Definitely I was in high school. But the TI-84 one was like it was different dimensions. So rather than being top up, it was side by side, and you could pick up blocks in front of you and put them down. Very good game. Block Dude or whatever it was called. I forgot about that.
It was Block Dude.
God, Block Dude was a classic. So was the other one, the one where you had to like get rid of pairs or groups of things next to one another. Love those TI-84 games. Another genre of puzzle is word puzzles. So I have a wide variety here, but basically they're, I don't know what I was going at here, but they're board games designed to test your ability with language or explore its properties. So they include letter arrangement puzzle games, paper and pencil games, and semantic games. The idea being that some like heavily rely on your understanding of like intense clues, like crossword puzzles here, where you really have to like use your knowledge of language and use your knowledge of vocabulary as well. Same with like Scrabble. Others are just like word searches. So there's a wide variety. A lot just require you to know a bunch of words, but not really know anything about them, such as wordscapes, such as a lot of things. So yeah. And that brings us to the final one, which is logic puzzles. I've included a variety of logic puzzles, and we're going to go into more detail in a lot of these. Got right here the one and only classic, the Sudoku puzzle, but additional ones that at least I did when I was sitting in my chemical reactor engineering lecture doing puzzles instead of doing lecture, is these Ken-Ken puzzles, logic puzzles. This is called a nonogram. This is a reference to a particular episode of
Yu-Gi-Oh,
Yu-Gi-Oh, where a logic puzzle, a verbal logic puzzle is given, where one person always tells a lie and one person always tells the truth, but they don't specify which. And that's those types of things are a wide variety, like a very popular and common logic puzzle.
I can't even begin to tell you how many Ken-Kens I did during PNEO. I did many Ken-Kens.
I love Kenkens. Well, we'll get into that, but you have now just a fundamental understanding of counting that not many have. So I love Kenkens. I haven't done Sudoku in a while. I've done Kenkens more recently, and I haven't done these in
Kenkens
a
are way
while.
better than Sudoku.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. I would have to agree with that. But even Kenkens you can tire of. The problem is that I did a Kenken app, but they were procedurally generated. And we'll get into that as well, but the procedurally generated ones just aren't quite as good. But before we get into those, we can talk about the history of logic puzzles. So actually one of the first people to do anything related to logic puzzles was Charles Ludwig Dodson. You may better know him as Lewis Carroll, as he is named in these various books. And in the book, The Game of Logic, this was kind of his first book of logic puzzles. This book had problems such as confirming the conclusion, some greyhounds are not fat, from the statements, no fat creatures run well, and some greyhounds run well. Obviously, this is an example of a syllogism, which predates Lewis Carroll slightly, maybe goes back to Aristotle or perhaps even pre-Aristotelian times, but it's an early use of the idea of a syllogism actually as a puzzle. And if I had more time, I would have actually skimmed through this to pull some fun examples, because I'm sure there are some. I don't think it's on Google Books. I don't know, I didn't look. But I bet there are some fun examples of early logic puzzles. And I don't have in here when this happened, but I think it was the mid 1800s, if I remember correctly. Oh, see, I updated here. First produced in the 1800s. Great slide work here. So yeah, then second half of the 20th century is when this really takes off. And you can see this guy, Raymond M. Smullyan, who really looks like a mathematician who would publish a bunch of books of logic puzzles. Looks like a cool guy. He was like a Taoist, unsurprisingly, once again, of a puzzle mathematician of that era. Didn't read
What was
too
his
much about him.
nationality?
I don't know. I actually don't know. Yeah. You can maybe try to figure that out on Wikipedia if you want, but I don't know. Published books such as The Lady or the Tiger, To Mock a Mockingbird, and Alice in Puzzle Land, a clever nod to our previous puzzle master, Lewis. And he popularized knights and knaves puzzles, which involved truthful knights and lying knaves, which once again was later used in an episode of Yu-Gi-Oh! No knights or knaves, just two monks, or whatever we want to call those.
They were
Basement
labyrinth
dwelling
guardians. They were
labyrinth
labyrinth
guardians.
guardians. Yes.
Okay. Yes. Thank you. I appreciate
Yep.
the fact check there, Nathan.
Yep.
And final slide. The real boom in logic puzzles, for the most part, has come out of Japan recently. And so there's this company, Nikolai, I don't know, in Japan, publishing a lot of different logic games, including they didn't necessarily originate the Sudoku puzzle, but they were responsible for 90% of the popular. Hard to say, but they invented the Sudoku puzzle. Basically, we'll get into who actually invented Sudoku, and they publish a wide variety of less popular puzzles. Once again, this is not quite finished, I guess, but here are some examples. So this is like the true thought of like, this is a crossword meets a Sudoku basically, or a Kenken or something like that. So I believe the logic here is all of the things going in one direction have to add up, and there's only one solution to this. And they'll obviously have to be one-digit numbers. Honestly, don't know the rules to this one, just pulled it off of Wikipedia. This one was a fun one. I played a version of this on my iPod Touch, and Nathan, you played that, right? Didn't you play this
Yeah,
one?
the
I
color
forgot.
line game.
Yeah, it's a rad game. And it's a good indication. A lot of these games, including like Sudoku is not a numerical puzzle. Sudoku is a symbolic puzzle. The actual numeric values don't matter. You could replace them with any symbols. You could replace them with A, B, C, D. And same for this one. So you're connecting 4 and 4, but you could also connect red and red, blue and blue, and so on. So that's kind of one of the things about logic puzzles. They're often, with the exception of Kenken, not numeric puzzles. So I wanted to kind of ground this in what was actually popular. So I hopped on Google Trends like I did last time when talking about eco-fascism, and I searched Sudoku, Ken-Ken, nonogram, and logic puzzles, because these are all some big ones. And so you see, we'll get to the timeline soon, but you see where Sudoku really takes off, and it takes off big and peaks, and it never really recovers from that boom right there. You can also see the Ken-Ken boom, which was a real boom. You'll see in just a second, but you can see how it compares to the popularity of Sudoku. So Ken-Ken never caught on the way Sudoku did, at least in the popular imagination. So I took off Sudoku, and you can see Ken-Ken spiking up here. And it really was a spike. It was for all the people like Nathan who were tired of Sudoku. They had Sudoku figured out, which we'll see soon if you really had Sudoku figured out, Nathan, as we talk about advanced techniques. But
I never claimed to have had Sudoku figured out. I just claimed that Ken-Ken was way better than Sudoku.
okay, fair enough, fair enough. So anyway, Ken-Ken had a spike. Nonograms is the yellow one. That one is the least popular, although at some point in maybe 2018, I don't know, it does start picking up a little bit. This is when I learned about them. My sister told me about them, so maybe this is all me and Holly just doing nonograms or something. I don't know. Okay, so Sudoku, let's talk about it. I have the most detail about Sudoku because Sudoku has been just thoroughly, obsessively researched because, as we see, it's about 1,000 times more popular than these other games. So we have a lot of things about Sudoku. 19th century French newspapers would publish these magic squares. So this is where you start seeing kind of the logic of Sudoku. You don't have the individual 3x3 squares yet, but you got the whole big guy, and you just got to make something that follows the rules of Sudoku, where every column has every number, every row has every number. The modern Sudoku was likely designed anonymously by this young fellow, Howard Garnes. I believe he was 74 at the time when he designed Sudoku. And he was a freelance puzzle constructor, which seems like a pretty rad job. And of course, this was in the golden era of magazines when everybody had 100 different magazine subscriptions. So this was Dell magazine, and it was called Number Place. Dell Math Puzzles and Logic Problems, number 9. So I didn't look up what the heck Dell magazine was, but I don't know like how affiliated it is with Dell and what that relationship is, but I thought that was interesting. So 79 invented, as far as we can tell, and in America. So that's kind of worthy of note. It was introduced in Japan by Nikolai, and actually Nikolai is the company, but I also believe it's this guy's name right here, this handsome lad, as Suji wa Dokushin ni Kagiru. That's my Japanese, but I've highlighted where the Sudoku comes in, so that's the shortening. And this can translate to the digits must be single or the digits must be unmarried. Apparently that's the usage of single that they're going with. And so this is fun. This guy, this is an interesting fellow. I didn't look into him deeply, but in 1997, this guy, Wayne Gould, who was apparently a judge in Hong Kong, saw a partly completed puzzle in a Japanese bookshop. He spent 6 years just tinkering away at a computer program to rapidly produce puzzles. Basically press go and it generates a puzzle along with an answer. And so in 2004, the Times in Britain picked up the puzzle and it spread almost immediately. So I think this was early 2004, and by the end of 2004, it was everywhere, including like a lot of American newspapers. It didn't take a long time to cross the Atlantic. Yeah, they were just an immediate hit with people because people love their Sudokus. People got to have them. So I think we all know the rules to Sudoku, at least these first one, fill the 9x9 grid, and additionally fill these 3x3 subgrids, or cages, they're sometimes called, with the digits 1 through 9. Nikolai introduced 2 innovations. The number of givens was restricted to no more than 32, just to make it appropriately difficult, and the puzzles became symmetrical. So you can see here, this one has rotational symmetry. So if you were to rotate it 180 degrees, or if you were to mirror it left to right and top to bottom, and that's the same thing actually, you would get the exact same position of the givens. And so that's why Sudokus are kind of aesthetically pleasing when they appear in the newspaper. Finally, it should be noted that published Sudoku puzzles are expected to have only one unique solution. If you have more than one solution, it's a improper puzzle and it should not be published in a newspaper. And unlike these other puzzles, Sudoku has like understood rules about that because it's so popular that like there is a whole theory of Sudoku, if you will, and we'll get into that too. And so Sudokus with multiple solutions are considered unsolvable. Unsurprisingly, also ones with no solutions, it's possible to generate that. I could do that with literally two numbers. I could just put 8 right next to one another so they're in the same row. You've created an unsolvable Sudoku. So, but you can also do ones where you get to a certain point where there are no legal moves, basically, as you are adding pieces to your Sudoku. So those are the rules for Sudoku. So now we're going to get into Sudoku strategies, which hopefully you guys are familiar with some or all of these. Have you guys all done your fair share of Sudokus?
Yeah, definitely.
I'm getting maybe a less
Done
of
a
a
couple.
yes
I've
from
done.
Leo.
I'm probably
This is
not beyond beginner.
I was going to say, this is the first time Leo's ever heard of a Sudoku.
Sometimes I see people doing them on the train.
They're fun.
It looks like they're
They're a good time.
casting spells.
Yeah. So we're gonna just start with the beginner strategies and work our way up to the more expert of strategies. So very beginner is just kind of scanning the puzzle and doing simple elimination. So we look in this square right here and see, oh, there's not a 9 in this square. Can't be a 9 in this row. Can't be a 9 in this row. Has to be a 9 up here. Or, oh, there is no 1 in here, can't be a 1 in this row, or this column, so the 1 has to go here. As we get more advanced, we don't have to do that just with squares. So when I started Sudoku as a 3rd grader or whatever, these were the 2 tricks that I followed at first. And if I couldn't figure it out with those, I couldn't figure out the Sudoku. It did not take long for tricks like this one to pop up. So now instead of looking at a square, you're looking at this row. Okay, this row has everything but a 6 and a 2. This can't be a 6, so this has to be a 6. You can also get a little bit more creative, and now you can look at like this individual square, and you know that, okay, we can't have a 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9 in this square, so that leaves us just with the 2. And so the idea behind, at least if you're following a formula, basically, human formula for doing Sudokus, is at a certain point, you'll probably just like write every number that could possibly go in every square. So you would write like, okay, can't be a 1 here, but there could be a 2, there could be a 3, there can't be a 4, there could be a 5, there could be a 6 and a 7, and there couldn't be an 8, and there couldn't be a 9 because that's in the square. And you just go across the whole puzzle doing those. And so that's those things all together are I would lump them all in together as beginner Sudoku strategy. And it's that's the extent of what a lot of people do for their Sudoku play.
Me included.
But Leo included, but we're going to get more advanced because we love Sudoku. And so first of all, we're going to do an advanced elimination. So this is the one technique that I would probably consider a moderate technique. And I don't have my notes here that are telling me exactly how to explain these. So hopefully I will be able to understand what these pictures mean. But this one's straightforward. That's why I call it moderate. So we know in this square that either this spot right here or this spot right here has to be a 1. So we know that nothing in this column can be a 1, and therefore the only square in this 3 by 3 that can be a 1 is this guy right here. So that's moderate. That is pretty doable, and that is obvious if you write like all of the possibilities in each of these, as you know that each of these have the 1 as a possibility and none of these do. This one is a bit more advanced. It relies on a property called naked pairs. And so the idea is that somehow, and I might have to check my notes, but somehow you know that these 2 squares right here have to be 4 and 9. And so let's see if I can figure that out.
See the 9, but not the 4. It's kind of weird.
Naked pairs are special because without the 4-9 magic pair, there would be no way to eliminate 6.
Yeah, the reason why you know it's a 4 is because in the block right above it, the 4 is in the middle column, so it needs to be, right?
Yeah, because of the 4 in A1 and also the 4 in I9 allows
Yeah,
you to.
you know that the 4 can't be in the middle column of the bottom left, so it has to be in
Yes.
the middle column of the middle one.
That's perfect. Thank you. Yeah. So you know that these ones have to be 4-9. Same for 9 because all three of these are blocked by 9. And so what you then can, you know that because both of these have to be 4 or 9, they can't be 1, 2, 3, 4. They can't be 5. They can't be 6, and they can't be 8. So you've created a magic pair right here, and you know what these two are, you just don't know which is which. And so if you weren't relying on this, you would do your elimination with your 6s. So you would, whoop, you would know that these two couldn't be 6, whoop. You would know that this one couldn't be 6, but there's no way to disprove that this isn't 6 without relying on your naked pair right here. But when you utilize it, now you know that this one has to be 6. So that's a more advanced technique, and thank you for your help kind of pointing it out. This one is another magic pair, but this one is hidden, so it's less obvious. But now what they've written down is they've written down every possibility for every single one of these spots. So if you actually look at all of these in the row, there's only 2 spots in this row that can be a 1, and there are only 2 spots in this row that can be a 4. So what you can do then is you can erase this 3, 7 here because you know this can't be a 3 or a 7. You can erase this 3, 5 here because you know this can't be a 3 or a 5. It has to be a 1 or a 4. And now going across in this row, there's only 1 space that can possibly be a 7. And so you have that marked as a 7 here. And so that maybe not immediately obvious, but when you're doing Sudokus strategically, you'll pretty quickly be able to pick out these hidden pairs. And it's as simple as just quickly erasing 3, 7, erasing 3, 5. And oftentimes you won't immediately get something pointed out to you, but it's all about just reducing possibilities, and eventually things kind of fall into place. This final strategy is, I believe, kind of just, it's similar to naked pairs, but it's a little bit different. And so what we're looking at here, if I'm not mistaken, is everywhere on the puzzle that could be a 4, I guess. And so I'm once again confused because I'm curious about this H column, but we know that okay, so here's how we know this. In column A, there are only 2 spaces that can be a 4, either 2A or 9A. And in column I, there are only 4 spaces that can be a 4, either 2I or 9I. And so what this tells us is that because these are the only 2 spaces in each of these columns, then the 4 in row 2 has to be either here or here, and the 4 in row 9 has to be either here or here. So then if you do other Sudoku reduction, you'll see that the only possible things that could be in this square right here are a 2 or a 4. But now you know through this thing called X-Wing that it can't be a 4, so you're stuck with a 2. So this is described as an advanced Sudoku strategy. Now I know what you are all thinking right now. Robert, what about extremely advanced Sudoku strategies? And you guys, unfortunately, are not in any luck. I went to learnsudoku.com and learned these advanced techniques, and I have communicated them to you as your logic puzzle expert. But I wanted to learn extremely advanced techniques, so I clicked the link. And unfortunately, what it revealed is that extremely advanced techniques are forbidden knowledge. And more specifically, I'm trying to move the little display with all of your heads on it because it's in my way. Okay, I guess I'm not going to be able to move it, but hopefully all of you can read this. There we go. Yeah, they're just too complicated, too hard to spot, and or too rare to bother mentioning, quite frankly. They were thought up by geniuses, and in my opinion, should only be used by geniuses.
Is this the type of thing where you plug in just like the first block from the Sudoku puzzle and then it just spits out the entire answer? Like that's how in-depth they are?
Well, what I was going to say is that, I mean, you're getting at what my next slide is, which is the mathematics of Sudoku, because the extremely advanced techniques in practice are just what computers do. And I mean, maybe there are some other extremely advanced techniques that we should all be aware of.
So
Really,
I have a question, I guess.
Mhm.
So a Sudoku puzzle that's properly generated only has one solution.
That's correct.
So a completed Sudoku puzzle conveys the exact same information a completed Sudoku puzzle does.
That is 100% correct. In
Then what's the
information
point?
theory, exactly.
Yeah,
In information theory terms, to call back on a previous
it's like
symposia,
compressed data.
yeah,
A
you're
non-completed Sudoku puzzle is like compressed data, and it's conveying the exact same thing as a completed Sudoku puzzle.
absolutely. Each one has the same amount of entropy being conveyed. Yeah, so
It's deep.
yeah. I guess some Sudoku hints may in fact be overspecified, so they are conveying maybe a little bit of extra information, such as your easy Sudokus. But no, you're dead on, Nathan. What's the point?
What if actually we live in a simulation and we are just we are uncompressing data for the system? Like the Sudoku puzzles it's feeding us are the compressed data, and then we're just doing the legwork of uncompressing it.
You're saying like,
It's
Will Short
possible.
is the interface in between, like data that needs to be decompressed and the machine knowledge that does it.
Yeah, exactly.
The operating system.
Yeah.
So Nathan, you're actually getting at an important point, which is the fun here with logic puzzles for some of us more gifted, you could say, more logically
And
minded.
gifted and talented.
Gifted and talented. The real fun is coming up with the puzzles, not solving the puzzles. Solving the puzzles is child's
I
play.
think I've said this before, but if any of us ever lose our vaccination records, just refer to them to this video series and they'll just give you a full completed one. This will be all the proof that you need.
Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I actually was blood tested pretty recently, and I am not immune to mumps, I think. So I need to get revaccinated. So please, I'll be doing that in the coming week or so. So keep an eye out for any changes in my behavior.
You're
That's
going to
probably
be
why I don't
loving
understand.
math. You're going to be
Yeah.
loving math pretty
That's probably why I
soon.
don't understand this. I've been walking around for years. Sorry.
All right, so let's talk about the mathematics of Sudoku, a very important and pressing topic. Sudoku is basically just a Latin square, which has been just thoroughly analyzed mathematically for literally hundreds of years. And I have an example of a Latin square here, not with numbers, but with colors in stained glass that is quite old and I believe meant to commemorate some sort of mathematician or mathematically minded person. And so the analysis of Sudoku basically begins with the analysis of Latin squares, with the caveat being that the Sudoku has the 3x3 grids added on. And so it turns out that the general problem of solving a n squared by n squared grid of n by n blocks, so this is like a Sudoku would be a 3 squared or 9 by 9 grid of 9 3x3 blocks. So that's all this is getting at, is known to be NP complete. I tried to teach myself what NP complete meant because I've seen that on Wikipedia many times, and I would love to actually be able to wrap my head around it, but I still...
A solution does exist and can be found in real time.
Yeah, and I think polynomial time is the specific phrase. So I think it can polynomially scale up with the number of n's that you add. As you increase complexity, the solving time increases at a polynomially rate. So it's not like it doesn't go up exponentially, which is different. And I could be wrong about that. I'm not 100% sure. But that's the idea behind this. And so there are simple ways to do that with the computer algorithm, such as this backtracing algorithm, or backtracking algorithm, which I actually understand. So what this does is it just starts at your very first square and it says, what could go here? Well, 1 could go here. So let's assume 1 is here and then think of the lowest number that could go here. And it keeps going through all of the different possibilities. Eventually it lands on a 4 here, and then it starts making a lot more sense as it goes down. It has to backtrack a couple of times, but even the most difficult Sudoku on like this laptop could be solved with this formula, which probably even I could write maybe I could probably write it in a day, maybe, I don't know. But it could solve your Sudoku in a matter of seconds, basically. So
Does anyone do Sudokus this way, like by hand?
not to my knowledge. It would require a very special mind, and in yet a different way than the special minds we've been talking about so far.
These brute force
Maybe
attacks.
Leo in a couple of weeks will be solving it this way.
Yeah, I'd say this way is definitely kind of designed for computers who can do many operations per second. I'd recommend the other heuristics. And actually, this dancing links there's a whole bunch of interesting Wikipedia pages about all of this, and I wanted to explain it to you guys, but I just simply can't understand it, and it sure reads like the type of thing that you will not understand what the hell dancing links are until you actually program like a dancing link solution to some kind of puzzle. And they give like some simple examples of doing matrix calculations and explain how a Sudoku can really be just simplified to like solving a matrix, basically. But I don't understand it. But apparently it's a very efficient way to solve this Sudoku type of problem. The difficulty with Sudokus is that there is a combinatorial explosion. Combinatorics is a important field of math relative to logic puzzles. It's basically thinking of all the different possible ways that things can be arranged. So if in your like stats or geometry class, you were asked to say like, how many different ways can you pick 3 students from a group of 9 students? That's combinatorics. And so you can imagine the combinatorics with Sudoku is very, very intense. And there is, as they say, a combinatorial explosion occurring as n increases. So this is just with Latin squares. So there's one way to do a 1 by 1 Latin square, 2 ways to do a 1 by 2 Latin square, 12, 576, 100,000, 800 million, 61 trillion. So it just keeps going up faster and faster and faster. Whereas with Sudoku, you are now suddenly going just from 1 to 4 to 9 to 16. And so 1 to 288 solutions for a 4 by 4 grid to this number right here, whatever it is. And then for 16 and 25, they have estimated the number of collect solutions, and it is nearly a Google for a 4 by 4 or a 16 by 16 grid of 4 by 4 grids. So yeah, there are this number, so 6.67 times 10 to the 21 unique solutions to the classic Sudoku, which is a 6 orders of magnitude less than the number of Latin squares. So you can basically think that for a regular Sudoku, 1 in every 10 to the 6, I think that's a million. It might be 10 million or 100,000. I forget how to, I would need to count on my fingers.
Is that difference, the difference between number of solutions of Latin squares Sudoku, is that just due to the fact that Sudoku has it broken up into the 3 by 3 squares as well?
Exactly. So if you were to generate a million of these randomly, statistically speaking, one would probably have it where all of these 3 by 3 grids, and this one obviously is not, this one is just 7 by 7, but one of them would have it where all of these 3 by 3 grids follow the Sudoku rules. So this is great and all, but mathematically, a lot of these things are the exact same. So they're actually just mirrored Sudoku grids, or you could like move you could take the top row and move it to the bottom, and it would still be a true Sudoku grid. Like the first 3 rows, you could move them to the bottom. And so there are a lot of transforms you can perform on Sudokus to basically make them quote unquote the same. You could also swap all the ones and all the twos, for example, and it would be the same pattern. It would just be different numbers. And so this is some great examples of combinatorics to reduce it down. Turns out in terms of actual like puzzle shape designs, there are only about 5 billion different possibilities there, which is still quite a few. So you'll see relabeling symbols. You can do band permutations. So this is when, I don't remember what these is. And so I think a band is like 3 rows together. And then you can do row permutations within a band. So you can do other tweaks. And so this is how many possibilities you're reducing each time. And then the final one is reflecting transposition and rotation. And it turns out that doing a lot of these permutations is the exact same thing as doing reflection, transposition, and rotation. So it only reduces your number of possibilities by half. The math is even more complicated. You're not just dividing by this, but some puzzles are isomorphic, which means that they, if like you were to rotate the puzzle 180, if you were going to flip it around 180 degrees, you would have literally the same puzzle. If the puzzle itself is a mirror. And so now it's not like it's the same, it's not like they're different but not essentially different. They are literally the exact same when you flip it. So that's what makes combinatorics difficult and makes things like this difficult, because you can't apply these numbers to all of that. So I just thought that was fun. I like combinatorics. I don't understand all of this immediately, but I hope it makes a bit of sense. Had to ask and answer the important questions. Yes, Sudoku has been programmed in Minecraft. I didn't really watch this video in detail. It is 30 minutes long, so I don't know the nature of this working Sudoku machine. I don't know if it'll tell you whether or not you've successfully completed your Sudoku, or if it's just a board that lets you make numbers show up. But this is the redstone circuitry behind the Sudoku board. So I thought you guys would find that to be somewhat fun. Once again, a different kind of special mind taking place here. And now we're going to dive into Ken. Ken, trademarked name. So you got to pay Mr. Ken himself, or someone, I think Robert Führer, which is a fun last name, money if you use that name. And it was invented just in 2004 by a Japanese math teacher. And that kind of gets to the nature of Ken, is it's a math teacher's kind of puzzle. And yeah, in 2007, it was popularized in Japan. I'm not going to read this, but it translates to smartness puzzle. And you'll notice that Kashikoku is or Kashiko is sometimes also just said as Ken in Japanese. So Ken, smart, is basically, or clever is what the puzzle is called. So he brought it to, once again, the Times. This is the same newspaper that was first to do Sudoku. And the puzzle very quickly grew in popularity worldwide. So that's the history of Ken for you. Much less research than Sudoku. So Ken rules are similar. Like Sudoku, you got to fill the grid so that each column, each row has every digit appearing once. Sudoku, it's common, or Ken, it's common to have all kinds of grids from like 3 by 3 or 4 by 4 all the way up to like 12 by 12 potentially. Even bigger, I don't know, that's the biggest I've seen. They're divided into these heavily outlined groups called cages, and the numbers in the cell must equal this operation. So 3 minus, 4 minus 1 equals 3, 11 plus, 5 plus 6 equals 11, 240, 4 times 5 times 4 times 3 equals 240, so on and so forth. At least for English language Ken books, which were edited by good old Will Shorts, who I don't have a picture of in this presentation, unfortunately, but NPR Puzzle
No one's
Master.
ever actually seen him.
Oh, hundreds of people have seen him.
He just spits out puzzles for people.
At the various ping pong tournaments he frequents all around the United States. His third passion, ping pong.
What's his second passion if his first passion is puzzles?
I guess I consider his passions to be crosswords and other puzzles. But They deal with the issue of non-associativity of division and subtraction. So with addition, 1 plus 3 equals 3 plus 1. Obviously with subtraction, 1 minus 3 does not equal 3 minus 1 by restricting clues based on these operations to cages with 2 cells. So that makes sense. Less popular, rules are less standard and codified. The Wikipedia article is much shorter. However, like Sudoku, published Kenkens typically only have one solution. Another typo spotted there. And we're going to get into the math. So the math of Kenken is a little bit more difficult, but at least explaining Kenken, and there's not 100 Wikipedia articles about it, but it's an excellent tool for teaching arithmetic literacy, especially prime factorization, which I love prime factorization. I don't think they teach the youth of America nearly enough about prime factorization and the fact that any number is just a number of primes multiplied again by one another, and also thinking kind of combinatorically. And so to get into that in a little bit more detail, we'll answer the question, how can you multiply 4 numbers less than or equal to 6 to get 180? So any takers on what I don't need the answer, but what would the first step be to do this?
You would break it up into factors.
Yeah, so the first step you would do is just get the prime factors of 180. So now we know, okay, there are 5 prime factors. All we need to do is recombine this in whichever way keeps the numbers below or equal to 6. And it turns out there are only 2 ways to do that. We can eliminate one of these 2's by multiplying it by another 2, or we can eliminate one of these 2's by multiplying it by 3. We can't multiply 3 by 3, that's bigger than 6, and we can't multiply 2 or 3 by 5 because that's bigger than 6. So it turns out there are 2 different ways, 2 times 3 times 5 times 6, or 3 times 3 times 4 times 5. So if you have a 4 square in Kenken that multiplies up to 180, you know that it has to be one of these 2 possibilities, and you can start kind of going from there. Same for addition. How many different ways can you sum 4 numbers less than or equal to 6 to get 9? And so that one, I kind of just walked through myself, just starting with, okay, let's assume that 2 of them are 1. Well, there's 1 way we can do it, 2 ways we can do it, 3 ways we can do it. Now let's boost one of these 1s up to a 2. All right, there's 1 way we can do it, 2 ways we can do it. And that, I think, is it. And I forget the reason in my head why that's it. Let's see. Yeah, because anything else would kind of, the way you would have to do it is it would be the same. So if you did 1 plus 3, that's 4 right there. And you would basically need to, you already have 1 plus 3 plus 1 plus 3.
Robert.
Is my math wrong? Did these add up to 8?
You didn't put the initial condition very good. You should have said that it's greater than or equal or greater than 0 numbers, because otherwise you could use negatives.
Thank you. I think I did screw this up though, because I switched midway through to make them, this one is wrong at least. This one should be a 4, and I don't care about any of my typos, but I am clearly a little obsessive about my math typos, so this one is being fixed straight away. I think these are all right now. So anyway, it teaches you a way to methodically step through addition to come up with all of the different ways to add these numbers together. And so pretty soon you're thinking in combinatorics and like how, if you need to sum 4 numbers less than or equal to 6 and greater than or equal to 0, thank you, Nathan. To get 4, there's only 1 way to do that. To get 5, there's also, I think, only 1 way to do that. But as you get higher and higher, there become more possibilities until you get up to 24. And then there's only 1 way again to get numbers that sum up to 24. So you can pretty quickly pick out which are the easy squares that only have 1 possibility or 2 possibilities, and which are the difficult ones that have a zillion different possibilities.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Isn't the whole focus on like learning multiplication through combinatorics like what Common Core math is all about? And isn't that part of the reason people got so angry
I don't know the answer to that because I don't know what Common Core math is about. I always assumed that the thing that people got pissed off about Common Core math was literally the same thing people got pissed off about new math back in my parents' day, because both of my parents got taught new math in high school and they told me all about that. And obviously it helped my dad because he became a computer guy. He was literally programming in hexadecimal. So the new math obviously helped him, but basically just doing math in like base 16 or base 8 or whatever. That whenever you're doing that, that immediately gets parents' yams extremely steamed.
My understanding for both new math and Common Core math is that they try to, on some level, teach you like a fundamental understanding of numbers rather than like any shortcuts on
Yeah.
learning numbers, which is what gets parents so upset, I think, because they know math only through shortcuts and they don't
Yeah.
know like the actual fundamental way that math works. So the fundamental explanations don't make any sense to them. That's like talking like Leo's example. I think like a one Common Core like meme basically is the way that you add like 2 3-digit numbers, and there's like the shorthand that we've all learned where you like stack them on top of each other and then you like add and you carry over and things like that. And Common Core has some way to do it that is like based on breaking things up into factors, adding factors together in like a way that makes sense, that gives you a more intuitive understanding. But then the parents are like, and like I think if you
It
learn
takes
how
up
to do
more
that
space on the page, so they get
exactly,
mad.
if you learn how to do that way from like the beginning, you could probably add 3-digit numbers together like pretty simply in your head. But to the parents, they just say you could just do it faster if you did it stacking on top of each other and carrying over the one or whatever.
Yeah, and I bet if like us math heads were to look at Common Core, we'd find plenty of things to get annoyed with as well. I think there is this thing called slip and slide for doing like solving polynomials like x squared plus ax plus b or whatever. And it's like this, I don't know. Anyway,
Like
I don't know.
like look
It sucks.
looking at Common Core, some of the things that they do in Common Core are things that when I'm trying to do math just in my head are like the shortcuts that I take. It's like, if you want to multiply 256 by something, you could do the way that we learned again, which is like you multiply everything out, or you can break it up into like several different numbers that are easier to multiply by a number, and then you add them up at the end. And that's what like Common Core does.
You use like the FOIL method, but you apply that to numbers by like some kind of variable based, the outside, inside, last to multiply like two-digit numbers.
Yeah. Yeah. So
from what I've seen, it makes sense. But I think
Yeah.
if you don't get numbers, you're just like, what are they doing? They're trying to teach my kid to not do math.
Also, Common Core is it's a law. It's not just the way to like teach math. It's a standard core of whatever. Anyways, thank you for the distraction, Leo. But no, you're kind of dead on. Is that and I mean I was getting at this. I think prime factorization, like this is something that is cool about numbers, and you should also like at least the 33% of students or however many students who do find this cool should be allowed to find it cool in math class. And I don't think that's something that happens today. I don't think that Common Core or whatever is necessarily the fix to that, but math should be cool and fun. And yeah, so Ken's cool and fun. Anyways, so there's like no research on Ken like there is for Sudoku. But there there's not the rigorous mathematical analysis, but there are algorithmic tools that can generate Kens and can teach us a lot about mathematics in the process. So they can be programmed to solve a Ken by basically teaching them all of the different heuristics we know, starting with the very easy ones of if you have a square that is 1 square large and says 4 in it, you write a 4 in there, all the way to the very advanced ones, similar to X-Wing or whatever, like we're doing on Sudoku. Another fun part of Ken is actually assembling the grid and how many possible ways there are to do that. And there's a whole world of math there that I'm not even going to get into, but it involves these fun polyominoes that we have right here, such as the pentominoes. If you played Puzzle Pirates in your youth like I did, you would recognize these pentominoes from the carpentry puzzle in Puzzle Pirates. I was a big fan.
Would they just be from like Tetris? Wouldn't that be?
Yes, also that. Although I think Tetris is quadrominoes or whatever. I don't know if they're all even 4 for Tetris. I think they are. Yeah, they're all 4 for Tetris. Leo, were you a Puzzle Pirates head?
I was never very good at it, but I did like it.
Was carpentry your puzzle? I could see carpentry being your puzzle.
That's the only one I remember, so I'm guessing it's probably my favorite.
And then
there was one with colored balls too. I don't remember what that was.
There were multiple with colored balls, but probably sailing.
Wasn't Puzzle Pirates shut down because it was like a hotbed of white nationalism?
That's not true, but sadly, Puzzle Pirates was shut down. You know, honestly, there were a lot of like Swedish, all of those, like Sweden, Norway, and like those countries like have a little bit of they're having a moment of white supremacy.
I thought you were going to say hotbed of pedophilia or something.
That's Club Penguin, which also got shut down, I'm pretty sure.
No, you're thinking of Habbo Hotel.
Yeah, that too. Well, that was a hotbed of all kinds of other diseases.
What about coolmathgames.com? Is that one still kicking?
So listen, I just Googled Puzzle Pirate white nationalism. The first article is something about Charlottesville. So
interesting. Really makes you wonder.
Like the rallies there. So
really makes you wonder. So another fun kind of puzzle are these logic puzzles, sometimes called inductive reasoning puzzles or just logic puzzles. They require a process of elimination, inductive reasoning to determine matching descriptors. So this was another one that I did in the back of chemical reactor engineering. This was a good way to pass an hour. They're typically found in books like this, and you can kind of see, okay, we got these clues about who's standing left to right and who is what. Alex is the geology graduate and he's not from Glasgow. Neither is the computing graduate. So you can cross off, you can connect each of these individual factors and cross things off. And you can actually then, just from the table itself, you can do inductive reasoning, and you can like follow along that if Doug is on the second left and if maths is the subject of second left, then Doug is maths. And you can follow that down to here and do your inductive reasoning. And you can also do it the other way around. You can eliminate, like if we know that Doug is not the middle and we know that French is the middle, then we know that Doug is not French. And so it's all that Aristotelian syllogisms that we're talking about formalized in a table by a problem that was written very specifically that would never happen in the real world, except very specifically in this logic grid puzzle. And I guess I should take that back, because there is one place in the real world where these logic grid puzzles do appear. And you guys were talking about it earlier, but we'll get to that in just a second. Most famous logic grid puzzle is in this cool magazine with Marlon Brando wearing a ruffled collar on his whatever cuff, looking very good. Basically, this puzzle right here that is often attributed to Albert Einstein as a boy, of course, or Lewis Carroll, which makes more sense. Unfortunately, they mention a cigarette brand, Cools, which didn't exist during either of their Carroll's lifetime or Einstein's boyhood. So debunked, Snopes.com, gotcha. But yeah, they give you all these different clues. This would, if you were to turn this into one of these, it would be 5 by 5. It would be a big old puzzle. But Wikipedia has kindly shortened it for us into this table. You know, maybe it would be even bigger than that. Maybe it would be a 7 by 7. Now that I mention it, I think it would just be a 5 by 5.
I remember being given this exact thing in 8th grade.
That was very cruel of them, perhaps.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's a little bit easier. I would imagine this
I
one
certainly didn't solve it.
Yeah. Well, you were no Albert Einstein as a boy.
That's very true.
I have a good Albert Einstein story. Maybe it's better for the end of the presentation, but
All right. Yeah, give that to us when we turn off recording or whatever.
okay.
Yeah, varieties of this logic puzzle appear in the LSAT, officially making it the least fun and lamest variety of logic puzzle, which I think even Leo would agree with. We're
Absolutely.
getting a polite nod, and absolutely, yeah. So this is pulled from a practice LSAT test. I was not able to find one that had this exact structure, unfortunately, but there are many structures kind of similar to it where you have to do your inductive and deductive reasoning.
I remember one year pretty recently they added a new type of puzzle, and people absolutely lost their shit because a lot of aspiring law students, myself mostly included, can only really learn these through like rote memorization from a giant book of examples. And there was one
Yeah,
that was like fundamentally it was basically the same. You solved it the same way, but it was like totally unfamiliar, and people lost it. And like that year's scores were very out of whack because of that one puzzle.
I could absolutely see 15 of the 30 people just screaming, "When did we learn this?" and snapping their pencil against their knee in the middle of testing.
Yeah, and pulling another pencil out of their clear Ziploc of pencils you're allowed to bring, and people bring like
I
150 sharpened pencils.
I'm a pretty big adherent of the philosophy that you should learn a thing during the test. Tests are opportunities to learn things. That was in nuclear engineering. The professors always said we want you to learn something during the test.
Yeah, I'm definitely an adherent of the not study until you can do it right, but study until you can't do it wrong. And if you were doing it that way, you would have no trouble with the logic puzzle out of the blue. But I know Nathan and I have different philosophies when it comes to that. Nathan's
It,
philosophy requires maybe about half the amount of studying that mine requires, and is maybe twice as fun, twice as
what
exciting.
like only studying for 2 hours before the exam and doing no studying at all other than that?
Exactly, whereas mine requires maybe 4 hours of studying plus doing your homework.
Yeah. Well, I that was a famous thing for me in AP Chem was the day that homework was due, which is often the day after we took the test for that subject. I just filled in random numbers on all of the homework just to make it look like I did it.
How did that work out for you?
I've heard.
I did very well in AP Chem. There was like one of the tests I got 100% on, and then the next day the homework was due, and I was sitting there. Everybody else was like done with their homework, and it was like the day before winter break or something, and I was sitting there filling in random numbers on a homework for a test that we'd already taken. It was stupid, but
What a cool guy that Nathan was.
oh
All right,
yeah, big time.
here's another one, even less popular, maybe according to Google, but logic puzzles can mean a lot of things. These are very fun. I encourage you, if you're looking to kill time on the computer, you can do these in a book, although they're less fun. This one is super fun on the computer. Just Google nonograms, and so the idea is, it's a picture logic puzzle where the cells in the grid must be colored or left blank according to the number at the sides of the grid to reveal a hidden picture. So hopefully you guys can see here, like this one, 3, 2, 2, 3. So you have 3 blank, 2 blank blank, 2 blank 3. Clues on the side form a discrete tomography, to use the mathematical term, which is a list of how many unbroken lines fill a row and the length of those lines. These puzzles are often black and white. I think the most challenging and fun ones are just black and white because it's the best way to do it, but they can also be colorful, such as this beautiful fish. So this one, now you know that there are specific colors. And so you kind of do
Wait,
this.
so it just tells you like how many of each block you need?
Yep, and so you kind of do it by Sudoku logic. So if you look at this one and you know that there are 12 in a row, or even, we'll do this one that there are 12 in the row. So you know that it could be, like when you're starting the puzzle, you know that it could be anything from 12 starting on the very left. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So right next to this one, to 12 on the right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So you know that this square right here, and this square right here, and this square right here all have to be filled in. So you're kind of using your deductive logic, and you know for a fact that these have to be filled in. Then when you know that, you can like look at the one up here, and you can see, oh, hey, there's a line of 2 and then things unconnected. So you know that there is another square here, and you also know that there isn't a square here. So you can pretty quickly know where there are squares that need to be filled in and where there are squares that have to not be filled in. And once you know where squares have to not be filled in, you can really start relying on like the gaps. And you know, like, oh, so there has to be a 4 on this side of the gap and a 4 on this side of the gap. And then it's a matter of where it goes. So it can be extremely difficult. Typically, it's, I'd say, easier than Sudoku. It's just a very like chill activity. There's like, you don't have to like write in a lot of things. The whole process of doing it is basically writing in things for you. So you don't need special notes. You just kind of get in the zone and fill it in eventually.
It would seem like an easier one of these puzzles would be no more difficult than a coloring book.
Yes, it's kind of like paint by numbers with these. It's more difficult than paint by numbers, but barely. So yeah. So nonogram, you'll find it in so history. 1987, Nan Ishida, a Japanese graphic editor, won a competition in Tokyo designing a grid of a picture basically of grid design using skyscraper lights that were turned on or off. The grid design inspired this type of puzzle, basically, of using pixels like on or off to design things. So I thought that was interesting. These puzzles began appearing in Japanese puzzle magazines in 1980. I would love to do a nice Japanese puzzle magazine from 1980, see what's in there. That would be pretty rad. In 1990, James Dalgety in the UK invented the name nonogram after Nan Ishida, the inventor, and started publishing them in the Sunday Telegraph. So this is a different newspaper, and we're once again kind of seeing our puzzles move from Japan to the United Kingdom to the rest of the world. Don't know what that means, but it's interesting. Slowly developed a pretty widespread popularity. It's been in a lot of different platforms. So I have an example of a Mario nonogram right here for the Game Boy. I also have an example of a RuneScape nonogram from the 2011 Halloween event. So that's my second RuneScape slide as promised. There are a bunch of other logic puzzles. Had I had more time, I would have, I can see you squinting, Nathan. Had I had more time, I would have categorized some of these. A lot of these are like the knights and knaves style puzzles. There are some on here like the bringing the cow and the wolf, or the sheep and the wolf and the carrot across the bridge or across the river or whatever. There are ones where like, there's the one with the coins. I don't have that. There's the one with the coins where you are given 12 coins or whatever, and you have to determine which one is a counterfeit. So unsurprisingly, if you are familiar with some logic puzzles, it makes solving other ones easier because they're often adaptations of one another. So, you know, maybe when I'm bored this weekend or something, I'll just familiarize myself with all 91 of these logic puzzles. I rediscovered my passion for logic puzzles while making this. Definitely going to do some Ken this weekend. But yeah, so that's basically it for the presentation. I would be on this slide, but this makes my face too dark. So I want you guys to all be able to see it with the beautiful fluorescent light. So yeah, any questions about logic puzzles, comments, stories about Albert Einstein?
I have a story about my AP Bio class, but I'll wait till we're done. I have a question. What would you consider the most devilishly tricky logic puzzle category to be that like most people would encounter?
So obviously all of these graphic ones, I'm just going to go to the summary of logic puzzles here. All of these ones are kind of similar in difficulty, and that all of these four are similar in difficulty, that they could be made easy and they can be made hard. This one gets a little bit of extra challenge because you have to translate from words to logic here. And then once you have all of your words translated in, you basically have to keep track of what English has been translated into circles or X's and which ones you haven't incorporated quite yet. And it gets difficult when like they specify things in order. So this one is like a little bit more difficult for a computer to do, for an example. So given that I'm operating slightly off of Nathan's assumption that Sudoku puzzles are essentially a waste because all the information is there for you already. At least with a logic puzzle, you have to translate from English language to logic language. So that's some added difficulty there, and that can be used to make that devilishly difficult. I'd say the most difficult ones are actually ones of this variety, the various storytelling ones with your people like this, and you can actually get into paradoxes, which are obviously not solvable logical puzzles, but when you have puzzles of people like this, so like one of the paradoxes is someone is told, this is more of a philosophy thing, but someone is told they're going to be executed. They're going to be executed by the end of the week, but the day it happens, it will come as a surprise to them. And so they obviously can't be killed on Friday, because if the week came to Friday, they would know that they couldn't be executed then because it wouldn't be a surprise. They would know it's coming. But if they know they're not being killed on Friday, then if they're not executed by the end of the day on Wednesday, then they know they have to be executed on Thursday because they can't be killed on Friday. And you just follow that logic outward. So that's a paradox that can arise when you do these types of logic problems. So that is certainly devilishly hard. But even there are ones just like three wise men all are brought into a room to figure out who's the wisest, and they each the king puts on either a white hat or a red hat on
I remember
them.
that one.
And there are ones like that. There was a good one I read where a woman said like a census agent was coming into a woman's house, and the woman said like, oh, my children's ages add up to 20 and they multiply to 72. And the census agent said, that's not enough information. You're going to have to let me into your house to figure out your child situation, because she needed to know how many kids there were or what each kid's age was. And then the woman said, hold on, I need to go in and check on my oldest. They have chicken pox or whatever. And at that point, the census taker knew what the age of every child was. And so how did that work? And so the idea is that there are two potential solutions to that math, but only one of them has an eldest child. The other one has two like twin eldest children, basically. So it eliminates it from two choices to one choice. And it would be even greater if I actually knew the numbers, et cetera, et cetera. You learn to recognize all of these patterns when you read all 91 Wikipedia articles about various logic puzzles. So you learn the various tricks, but it's still like those are the ones that are devilishly hard.
I would posit that the puzzle that is performed the most times per day is not one that you listed, and it is one that is difficult for computers to do.
Talking to women?
This is a puzzle of its own. No.
Is it like selecting which photographs contain crosswalks or bridges?
Yeah, have like a crosswalk or a street sign or something like that.
Or like turn the rhinoceros right side up?
Yeah. Maybe my next presentation should be on machine learning. I have a lot of things to say about machine learning. I have a lot of thoughts on that subject. That one would take some actual work. I guess I need to get started on it now.
Can we really consider crossword puzzles a logic puzzle? Because it kind of just seems...
No, they're not logic puzzles. They are word puzzles, and they're semantic word puzzles / trivia. Like they're somewhere in there.
All right, good. Because a crossword puzzle is like, were you born before 1970? Like that's if you're gonna get it or not.
Like
I don't know. So We had an officer on our boat who always did crossword puzzles, and he was very bad at them. So what I did was I did a rigorous crash course in crossword puzzles, so that when I had duty days with him, I could just like beat him on the crossword puzzles. So I just spent
It's pretty devilish.
like 4 or 5 days. I spent like 4 or 5 days where all I did was I just did New York Times crossword puzzles.
I am not good at those. I can only do Monday and Tuesday, like on my own.
If you want to get good at New York Times crossword puzzles, just put out a block of like 3 or 4 days where all you do is crossword puzzles.
Good to
Because
know.
I was really bad at them too. And then like if all you do is crossword puzzles all day for a few days, you get good at it.
Your brain gets a little rewired.
You also have to watch like Gone with the Wind
Yeah.
10 times in order to like memorize the plot, because there's always like 6 references to that movie.
Yeah.
No, you don't. Because the thing is, for those types of things where they're called up enough, you can just recognize the patterns.
That's true. You just have to do 3 days of crossword puzzles, and then you don't even have to watch Gone with the Wind. I have a lot of quizable knowledge.
You just know like this hint is probably going to be this answer.
Yeah, I used to do crossword puzzles a lot in class back when there was physical class.
I got that from Quizbowl. Like I know literally the first thing about Candide, other than I'm pretty sure it was written by Voltaire and that it's written in French. And I know those 2 things from Quizbowl from getting multiple wrong answers. And honestly, in a pinch, like that'll be the last hint they throw out just to like get you to Candide.
Are we at my Einstein story yet?
Yeah, I think we can stop the recording.